Imagine a world where you are explicitly banned from having a family. Like,
Right.
you are forced to pack up your entire life and move to a completely new country every 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, on your exact 120th birthday, your biological body is just, well, it's discarded, and your consciousness is uploaded into a robotic shell on Mars.
Which is just, I mean, that's a lot to take in.
It really is. I
And
mean, that might sound like the plot of some dystopian sci-fi novel, but it is actually a genuinely proposed blueprint for achieving total world peace.
yeah, it's a completely staggering vision. And it operates on a logic that is just incredibly foreign to how we usually think about fixing, society's problems.
Exactly, because usually when you have an issue with your computer, you look for a patch,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, download a software update.
Exactly. You run a quick scan, you hope it fixes the glitch. Because you want to keep your files, your photos, your general setup right where they are.
Right, you don't want to lose everything.
Exactly. And we approach human society the same way. We tinker, we improve, we try to, patch the operating system. But the document we are looking at today completely rejects the idea of a patch.
Yeah, its solution is basically to format the entire hard drive.
Yes. It wants to completely delete the operating system of humanity and install something so wildly, fundamentally different that the computer isn't even a computer anymore.
It is the absolute definition of a systemic reset.
Yeah.
Like, the author isn't interested in reform at all. They're outlining a complete overwrite of civilization as we know it.
Welcome to today's deep dive. If you've ever wondered what it would take to build a truly flawless world, get ready, because we're exploring a translated text dated December 27, 2024.
Which wasn't that long ago, really.
Not at all. It is titled, Humanity is Evolving According to My Vision, and the author goes by the rather intense name Deiform Buddha.
Which is an incredibly bold title to claim.
Cheers.
But our mission today is to map out the anatomy of this radical manifesto. We are going to neutrally examine exactly what this author promises, the societal structures they intend to utterly dismantle, and the genuinely cosmic future they envision for humanity.
Yeah,
And just to set the stage for you, we are acting as impartial guides here.
completely.
We aren't taking sides, and we certainly aren't endorsing these views or, the author's claims. We are simply exploring the architecture of the ideas contained within this text.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because humans have always dreamed of a perfect world, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There are thousands of years of literature about paradise, utopias, peaceful communes. But this particular text, it accelerates from a peaceful farming commune vibe to hardcore sci-fi transhumanism incredibly fast.
It really gives you whiplash.
It does. The author literally promises a world where every individual experiences joy so profound it leaves them, quote, trembling in awe.
Right.
And I am genuinely curious how they plan to pull that off because, I don't know, a baseline of constant trembling awe sounds exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, to understand how they plan to engineer that level of perpetual joy, we have to look at the very first step in their blueprint.
Okay.
In almost all utopian literature, to construct a perfect society, the architect must first clear the ground. You cannot build a shiny new world on top of the old one if you believe the old foundation is inherently corrupted.
So we are right back to wiping the hard drive.
Exactly.
The author states they will eliminate the roots of human troubles, which they explicitly list as worry, pain, anxiety, sorrow, fear, and apprehension.
Right.
Which sounds amazing. Like, who wouldn't want to just highlight anxiety and hit the delete key?
I think we all would.
Yeah. But they aren't talking about better therapy or mindfulness or universal healthcare. They are talking about absolute, total institutional erasure.
Yeah, the scope of what they plan to abolish is staggering. It basically reads like a demolition checklist for human history.
It really does. I mean,
Yeah.
looking at the text, it says, I will abolish marriage and family. I will dissolve nations, political parties, and religions. I will erase wealth disparities along with banks and currencies. I will remove national borders entirely.
It's massive.
And by doing all this, the author claims they will eliminate theft, robbery, invasion, war, unrest, corruption, fraud, deceit, bribery, poverty, and hunger.
It's a huge promise.
It is. But wait, I just have to stop there and ask a really messy human question.
Sure.
I understand deleting banks to get rid of poverty. That tracks. But if you delete foundational institutions like family and religion, what actually binds people
Right,
together?
what's the glue?
Exactly. If I can't have a family who takes care of me, how does this author explain basic human bonding without the very institutions that usually facilitate it?
Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying philosophical assumption the author is making about human nature itself.
Okay.
In this blueprint, the author views those traditional human attachments, the very things you just mentioned, not as the glue of society, but as the primary engines of our suffering.
Wait, really? The engines of suffering.
Yes. Think about the causality they are proposing. Why do we have war? Well, because we have nations and borders that create a sense of us versus them.
Right.
Why do we have theft and corruption? Because we have banks, currency, and the concept of personal wealth.
Okay, so it's a purely structural theory of suffering. Like the structures cause the pain, not the people.
Exactly.
So if you remove the structure, the bad behavior just naturally vanishes.
That's the core argument here. The author is taking the concept of non-attachment, which, you find in various ancient spiritual traditions.
Like Buddhism and things like that.
Right, but they are weaponizing it into a mandatory global sociological blueprint. If there is no us versus them, because borders are gone, and there is no mine versus yours because money is gone, the friction of human existence is supposedly eliminated.
Wow.
They even argue that the family unit itself is a form of tribalism.
Oh, wow. Family is tribalism.
Yes, because a family implies that you love these specific 3 or 4 people more than you love the rest of the planet. It creates favoritism, it creates inheritance, it creates division.
That is just wild to think about. Literally deleting the concept of loving your own child more than a stranger just to achieve world peace.
Stripping it down to the studs.
Yeah, stripping humanity down to the absolute studs. But, okay, let's follow the logic. Let's say the hard drive is successfully wiped. The old world is completely erased. You're probably listening to this wondering what daily life actually looks like in this new era. Because the absence of suffering has to be replaced by something tangible, right? You can't just exist in a blank, frictionless void.
No, and the author does provide a very specific, almost micromanaged lifestyle roadmap.
They really do. The chaos of our current world is replaced by this highly regimented, yet supposedly joyful itinerary.
Yeah, itinerary is absolutely the right word for it. Here's the life plan for every single human being. You are slated to live to exactly 120 years old.
Not roughly a century.
Yeah.
Exactly 120.
Exactly 120. And over the course of that lifetime, you will live and work in at least 40 different locations.
Wow.
You will be mandated to experience all types of geography and climates. The text explicitly lists temperate, frigid, and tropical zones, places with 4 distinct seasons and places with only rainy and dry seasons.
It's so specific.
It is. And you will share your life with people of various races, languages, and cultures. And the result of this massive global rotation will be days that are, quote, intoxicatingly fulfilling.
It is a vision of a perfectly distributed human experience. Like every single person gets to sample the entirety of the planet. Nobody is stuck in one town their whole life.
Right. Total geographic freedom. Well, forced freedom, but
You have the freedom, yeah. Let me do the math on that, though. If you live 120 years and you have to live in 40 different locations, that means you are packing up your life and moving roughly every 3 years.
Yeah.
Your entire life. I mean, I'm comparing this to being a digital nomad on a mandatory global rotation. It sounds like an incredible travel vlog for the first decade, maybe.
Sure, seeing the world.
You see the tropics, you see the snow. But wouldn't that constant uprooting prevent you from ever truly feeling at home? Like, you're a perpetual guest everywhere. You never put down roots. Honestly, I think that sounds incredibly isolating.
I hear that. But from the author's perspective, putting down roots is the very danger they're trying to avoid.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, if we look closely at the mechanics of this text, we can see why this forced nomadic lifestyle is so crucial to maintaining their utopia. Think about it. If you stay in one place for 20 years, what naturally happens?
You buy a house.
Right. You build a house. You claim a piece of land. You form a local community that you naturally favor over others.
Oh, I see where this is going.
You start to care about local politics. You start to rebuild borders. Basically, you start to rebuild tribes.
Ah, you accidentally reinstall the old operating system.
Exactly. That's the mechanism at work. Constant movement and forced integration ensure that borders and tribalism stay dissolved permanently.
Okay, yeah.
You can't become intensely nationalistic if you've lived in 20 different cultures by the time you're 60, right?
Oh.
And you're moving again to a different continent in 2 years anyway.
Right. There's no time to get territorial.
Furthermore, This lifestyle replaces stagnant monetary wealth accumulation with what the text frames as experiential wealth.
Experiential wealth.
Yeah, since there are no banks, you can't hoard gold or stock. Your wealth becomes the sheer diversity of climates, people, and cultures you've interacted with. It's a calculated design to foster a truly global, unified human identity. You don't belong to a city. You belong to the planet.
Okay, when you frame it like that, it makes a bizarre kind of sense within the internal logic of the document.
It's very internally consistent.
Yeah. You keep the snow globe constantly shaken up so the flakes never settle into rigid, dangerous piles.
That's a great metaphor.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So you spent 120 years traversing the globe, experiencing every climate, never worrying about money or war or tribalism, just soaking up experiential wealth.
Yeah.
But even if you perfectly engineer a 120-year peaceful life, there is still one unavoidable source of human suffering staring you in the face.
Right. Aging and death.
Exactly. Which brings us to what happens when the clock strikes 120.
Yeah, this is where the text makes its most radical leap. It explicitly asks the question, when they reach 1 in 20, will they simply die? And the answer is a resounding no.
No.
The author cannot allow biology to have the final say.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the text presents two distinct afterlife paths, and it involves a massive, sudden genre pivot.
It really does.
Path 1 is the Mars transition. When you hit 120, your consciousness is transferred onto a chip.
Right.
That chip is transported to Mars. Once it arrives, your consciousness is replicated into a robotic body. The author calls this a spectacular transformation from carbon-based life forms to silicon-based beings, allowing you to relish the infinite joys of existence.
To unpack that conceptually, the author is introducing hardcore transhumanism here.
Right.
Transhumanism is essentially the belief that human beings can and should evolve beyond our current physical and mental limitations using advanced technology.
Yeah, upgrading the hardware.
Precisely.
Mm.
And mind uploading is the holy grail of that movement. The idea that you are essentially just software and your brain is just the hardware. If you can copy the software onto a new, indestructible silicon drive, you defeat death.
But then there's path 2. Because for others, the author says they will be guided to higher dimensions, and the text specifically names these places.
Right, the celestial realms.
Yes, the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium Celestial Islands continent, where you get to enjoy the bliss of being a celestial being.
It's quite a shift.
I mean, we just went from a documentary about a peaceful farming commune with no banks to a cyberpunk movie set on Mars, and then pivoted straight into high fantasy with Celestial Island.
It is a lot of genres colliding, yeah.
I just have to ask, why the sudden genre mashing? Why do we need indestructible robot bodies on Mars if Earth has already been turned into a perfectly engineered paradise?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of the manifesto, it actually represents the ultimate logical conclusion of their war on suffering.
How so?
Think about the entire premise of the text. Eliminating all sources of pain, fear, and apprehension. Earthly perfection, even an intoxicatingly fulfilling 120 years, isn't enough because biology itself is fundamentally vulnerable.
Oh, right. Because we can still get hurt.
Exactly. Carbon decays.
Yeah.
Flesh feels pain. Bones break. To achieve true permanent liberation from suffering, you have to escape the fragile carbon-based body entirely. Biology is the final border to be erased.
Wow. So flesh is just the ultimate failing institution.
That's exactly how it's treated, and what the author is doing by mashing these genres together is quite deliberate.
Okay.
They're marrying ancient spiritual concepts of celestial bliss and higher dimensional realities with modern technological concepts like mind uploading, microchips, and robotics.
Merging the spiritual and the sci-fi.
Yes, it's an attempt to provide a literal technological mechanism for spiritual enlightenment. In this vision, Mars isn't just a colonized dust bowl, it's a silicon heaven. The Elysium Celestial Islands aren't just myths. They are literal, higher dimensional realities you graduate to.
Wow.
The 120-year nomadic life on Earth is just the incubator. It's a trial period. The real goal is post-biological immortality.
So let's play this out. You might be listening to this and thinking, you know what? Uploading my mind to an indestructible robot on Mars after a century of traveling a peaceful Earth sounds like a pretty amazing deal. I'm in.
Right, sign me up.
Yeah. If this perfectly engineered, immortal, interplanetary future is an inevitable reality, The logical next question is, how do you actually get a ticket? What does it cost?
And that leads us to a very sudden shift in the author's tone.
Yes, regarding demands and warnings.
The manifesto pivots hard from describing a boundless utopia to outlining a very strict ultimatum, because a vision this absolute requires an absolute mechanism of enforcement.
It does. The author writes with this unwavering, almost intimidating certainty. They state that absolutely no one can stop this plan. No president, no billionaire, no philosopher, scientist, or thinker can halt the progress of this vision. It is happening, period.
Unstoppable.
And then comes a very direct warning. Do not resist this tide of change. The text says you must align yourself with it or risk being, quote, eliminated by the programs of the new era.
Eliminated.
Yeah. And finally, they reveal the one essential requirement for entry into this paradise. You must take something called the Soul Purification Course. They describe it as the most urgent of all matters, a once-in-10,000 years opportunity that you simply cannot afford to miss.
It is a striking rhetorical bottleneck. You have this vast, infinite universe of possibility, but it all narrows down to a single mandatory doorway.
So what does this all mean? Because the vibe completely shifts here. It feels like we just walked up to the gates of an incredibly exclusive VIP club, but there is a ruthless bouncer standing at the door.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
We started this deep dive talking about profound joy, shaking off the burdens of anxiety, deleting fear, living as these enlightened global citizens. But now, at the very end, there's a literal threat of being eliminated by the programs if you don't take the specific soul purification course offered by this specific author.
This raises the most important question of our analysis, really. And it synthesizes the profound paradox at the heart of this text, and frankly, at the heart of many radical utopian visions throughout history.
Okay.
On one hand, the vision promises a universally peaceful, egalitarian paradise. No rich, no poor, no borders, no wars. Ultimate freedom from the physical and mental sufferings of the human condition.
Right, the ultimate open source, free for everyone operating system.
But the mechanism for achieving this egalitarian paradise is uncompromising, rigid, and strictly top-down. The title itself gives it away. Humanity is evolving according to my vision.
Ah, right, my vision.
Exactly. The author alone dictates the abolitions. The author mandates the 120-year itinerary. The author decides the parameters of the Mars transition. And most importantly, the author provides the single mandatory course, the soul purification course, required to survive the transition.
It's the ultimate monopoly on salvation. You get absolute freedom from pain, but the price is absolute submission to this one specific ideological blueprint. If you don't submit, you are a bug in the system and you get deleted.
That is the tension you have to consider when evaluating texts like this. How does a manifesto balance the promise of ultimate liberation with the demand for total ideological conformity?
Yeah, that's the catch.
The utopian dream is that everyone is equal and free from suffering, but the reality of the text is that if you disagree with the architect, if you are that philosopher or scientist who resists, you are eliminated. It's a stark reminder that one person's vision of a perfect, frictionless paradise often requires the complete suppression of dissent. The Soul Purification Course isn't just an educational seminar, it's a compliance mechanism. It's to ensure everyone running the new operating system has the exact same code.
It's a remarkably heavy price. I mean, you give up the right to argue. You give up the right to build your own family. You give up the right to stay in your hometown, all in exchange for this intoxicatingly fulfilling 120-year world tour and a ticket to Silicon immortality.
It is a complete exchange of individual autonomy for systemic perfection. You basically trade your messy, painful freedom for an engineered, flawless existence.
All right, we have covered a staggering amount of ground today. Let's briefly recap the journey of this source material to see just how far we've come.
Sure.
We started by looking at a blueprint for the total erasure of the modern world, abolishing money, marriage, families, and nations, all to cure human suffering by removing our attachments.
Right.
From there, we mapped out the mandatory 120-year lifestyle of a global nomad, moving through 40 locations and every climate on Earth to build experiential wealth instead of monetary wealth.
The itinerary.
Exactly. And finally, we looked at the cosmic endgame. Uploading your consciousness to a Martian robot or ascending to the Elysium Celestial Islands continent, provided, of course, you pass the mandatory soul purification course and don't get eliminated by the new era programs.
It is a deeply complex document. It weaves together radical sociology, extreme transhumanism, and spiritual mysticism into one uncompromising manifesto.
And as we wrap up, I want to reiterate one more time, our goal in this deep dive was purely as explorers.
Yes, strictly neutral.
We're navigating the fascinating architecture of this radical manifesto,
Right.
imparting the ideas contained within the text without endorsing the claims, the warnings, or the author. We're really just looking at the code of this proposed new operating system to see how it supposedly runs.
But before we log off, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that builds on everything we've discussed today.
Let's hear it.
We talked at the very beginning about wiping the hard drive of humanity, erasing everything that supposedly causes us pain or creates tribalism.
Right.
But if we follow the logic of this text to its absolute end, if you strip away your family, your nation, your culture, your currency, your physical needs, and ultimately even your carbon-based biological body to become a piece of silicon software on Mars,
Mm.
what exactly is the consciousness that arrives there?
Yeah. What's actually left of the original files once you delete all the attachments?
Exactly. If you remove absolutely everything that causes human struggle, do you inadvertently remove the very things that make us human?
That is definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.